Yes, maybe I can start. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Dhaka, Bangladesh. So welcome to today's session on local action and global impact in addressing climate change. And there will be stories from LLA initiative. And to give actually a background of why we are doing this virtual summit is we actually last month we hosted the virtual resilience hub from on 9 to 13 September, focusing on South Asian initiatives on locally led adaptation to build resilience in the vulnerable community. So we tried to actually include voices from the voiceless people, the unheard voices. Actually, we tried to um, uh, try to invite them in this virtual summit to have their voices include as we are going to COP29 soon going forward. So from that discussion, we plan to host the virtual summit along with New Year Climate Action Week. As most of you are aware that we have it's not it's a month left that we are going to have the COP29, the discussion, annual discussion on climate change and that. So for that, we hosted this virtual summit, and in the virtual summit, actually, what we are going to do is we are having separate sessions on different themes, different discussions. Today's discussion is based on locally led adaptation, and we actually planned this discussion to have local voices, local initiative that is important to actually tackle climate change. So today we have panelists who will discuss about food security issue, as food security is a great threatening area where due to climate change we are facing the food security in South Asia severely. And then again, there is an interesting topic that actually came across heat wave, because earlier from this year, we weren't that much of aware about the heat wave, but this year we have faced the record-breaking heat, actually, highest temperature, and mostly the South Asian countries are the one who actually face the most severe impact of the heat waves. And then we will hear from our in-house ECAD initiative in locally led adaptation issue, as locally led adaptation issue is an emerging issue. So we will have our ECAD in-house person who will be sharing about the divisional platform and how ECAD is taking forward the locally led adaptation thing. And later we will be hearing about the climate bridge fund. So as in the adaptation process, finance is regarded as the major challenge, because getting the financial assistance, especially for the grassroots organization, local organization, youth organization, it's kind of impossible for them actually to access the finance. So how the climate bridge fund is working, how in South Asia it can be a example, it can set an example for grant opportunities. So we will be hearing from this different issues, different themes from our panelists today. So I will, without a further ado, maybe I will invite Dr. Rajvi Joshi to panelist. And before that, I just want to add one more thing, that each of the initiative is different, is in scale and location, but the one thing that is common among them is keeping the local people at the center of the discussion, center of the decision-making process, center of everything. Actually, that's what locally led adaptation means, and that's how actually initiatives are taken. So can I request Dr. Rajvi Joshi to turn on their camera?
Thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So namaste and greetings to everyone. I am Dr. Rajvi Joshipura, and today I represent the 2.9 million members of the Self-Employed Women's Association, which is a trade union functional across 18 states and 7 South Asian countries. The two broad goals with which SEWA functions are full employment and self-reliance. And to achieve these goals, we follow an integrated approach which focuses on organizing, capacity building, capital formation, and social security. So, as mentioned earlier, that the impact of climate shocks on SEWA members, especially SEWA members are basically the unorganized sector workers based in India, and the worsening impact of climate change are increasingly becoming evident, with the worst sufferers being these poor members. So they have always been disproportionately impacted as they are ill prepared and don't have access to much resources. Hence, on the occasion of our 50th anniversary in 2022, our members collectively resolved to focus on climate action as the central theme. And they took up a campaign called the Swachh Akash campaign, which translates to building clean skies. And since then, it has been the core mission of all the interventions which focus on climate resilience, adaptation, and mitigation initiatives. So as we see here in the image, besides that, the impact of climate shocks on these vulnerable sector members are varied. So we conducted an internal survey which focused on various aspects, and the results include that, and the results show that about 90% members stated that their livelihoods are adversely impacted, and the reason for which are 79% said that it was their work efficiency that gets decreased. 64 said that it is the work hours that decrease. They have to compromise on their work hours. 44% said that their expenses increase, be it because of the losses incurred, be it because of the out-of-pocket medical expenditure, or be it because of the spoilage of their goods or produce. And 43% stated that it was because of their work days that are getting reduced because of the illnesses. Similarly, another question entailed asking us then that what are the impacts of heat wave on their health, to which the most common symptoms members stated were headache, rashes, fever, dizziness, diarrhea, and vomiting. And not only this, but 38% people said that their mental health also gets impacted. In addition to this, food and water security get impacted as well, and 60% members stated that they had to depend on spoiled food or were forced to consume spoiled food because of extreme heat. And this is not only it, but the energy requirements also increase. 78% said that the energy supply often gets impacted, and 95% stated that their consumption increases during the peak heat months. So in response to this, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a Clean Skies campaign, which focuses on resilience building and capacity building of these unorganized sector members in response to increased climate shocks. The first of which is the Green Village intervention. So the intervention has been taken up with a threefold focus. So the first one is increased preparedness. Second is rebuilding their livelihoods, which is very necessary because of, as we mentioned earlier, that climate change is adversely impacting their livelihoods. And last but not the least is increased financial stability and resilience. So the Haryali/Green Village intervention is aimed to improve access on clean energy in the remote areas. And this is presently being achieved by advocating for comprehensive energy policies and implementing market solutions which are tailored specifically to the local needs. And the primary goal is to endorse a holistic approach. So these interventions basically include small adaptation measures like solar lamps, cool roof, biogas plants, solar pumps for irrigation, members adapting to usage of organic manure instead of chemical pesticides, precision irrigation, solar fencing, rainwater harvesting, and so on. Presently, over a span of last 1.5 to 2 years, we have set up about 150 green villages and 2 green wards, which are presently function in urban slums. Another intervention which is pretty unique and was the first ever intervention for unorganized sector members is the climate parametric insurance. So the product contours of the parametric insurance are that the product is structured in a manner to pay out multiple times within a span of 1 year with an average payout of about $3.5 per day. And the only parameter we have considered for both the years is the maximum daily temperature. And the payouts are made if the daily maximum temperature exceeds a trigger of 2 or more consecutive years. So the originally idea was put into force after seeing the worst impacted 5 districts of Gujarat in 2022 heat wave. So in 2023, this product was first time piloted with 21,000 members and was scaled up to 50,000 in 2024. Likewise, in 2023, we had 5 districts, but this year it was scaled up to 22 districts across 3 states. And in addition to providing members with access to parametric insurance, the product also entailed distribution of adaptation interventions, which increased their work efficiency or minimized their direct exposure to heat. For example, solar lanterns, tarpaulin sheets, water jugs, and so on. And similarly, this year we had a cash support. That is, each and every member who took part in the parametric climate insurance product was provided with a cash assistance of 400 rupees if the temperatures crossed 40 degrees Celsius in their districts. So the key outcomes include that the product, although it did not trigger in 2023, but it did trigger this year in 2024. And each and every member received an average payout of $11.8. Although the product triggered in 17 out of 22 districts, but all the members across all the 22 districts were provided with a cash assistance. In addition to this, the product also entailed members getting access to financial security and inclusion to about 17,000 members. This is very crucial to ensure that women members have a say in the decision-making process towards all the climate interventions. So these payouts ensure that they have the flexibility to decide on where to spend the money, be it for their medical treatment, buying food for their children, ensuring children's education, or simply paying off their debts or reinvesting in their livelihoods. Because during various conversations, farmer members said that they didn't have access to seeds throughout the summer season because they did not earn enough. But the money provided with help of the insurance and the cash layer put together helped them reinvest in their livelihoods or just diversify their income. Similarly, improved livelihoods. For example, the distribution of climate adaptation interventions help members mitigate impacts or by increasing their productivity or reducing medical expenses. The lessons learned were many, out of which the 4 main lessons were that although the product this year and last year focused only on extreme heat, but we need to cover multiple climate shocks and include multiple parameters like humidity and nighttime temperature. The delays in payout. So there were a lot of data collection issues, validation of satellite data, validation of members' account. So when we are talking about building climate adaptation and resilience at the community level, although the climate insurance provides a short-term access to climate finance, there is a need to integrate the same with LRRF or the Livelihood Resilience and Recovery Fund. For example, there is an anecdote here which says that Hasina Bibi is a home-based worker from Ahmedabad, and she is the sole breadwinner of her family. So whenever she used to earn during these climate shocks, managing expenses like food, children's education was gradually becoming difficult. But her husband wanted that the limited income they have should be spent towards his alcohol abuse. And whenever she used to deny, her husband would hit her. But she was left with no opinion but to give away the money. So this year the funds received that helped her buy books for her children, pay their school fees, and now they can lead a fulfilling life. So these are the benefits that the product yielded. Now in way forward, if what we envision is that to cover 2.9 million members, develop a forecast-based algorithm. Because from what we have seen is that these members, they won't stop working. But if there is something which can help us develop a forecast-based algorithm that will provide them with resources before the catastrophe comes. Similarly, like I mentioned earlier, there is a need to have an all-weather insurance and product bundling, because the impact is not only on their livelihoods, but health, crop, and cattle as well. And last but not the least, in order to increase accessibility and affordability and include them to the social security measures, it is necessary that we promote cross subsidization, risk sharing mechanism, increase members' access to adaptation assistance program, so that they don't feel handicapped. And last is increasing access to green technologies. So keeping all these in mind, what should be the vision for us to develop together is a holistic product, which not only provides with immediate relief, but a long-term relief measure as well, so that they can regenerate their livelihoods. And this is one of our members' talk, that is Sharda Ben from Ajmer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajviji, for sharing such a great initiative that is actually helpful for the women who are the most vulnerable, who are regarded as the most vulnerable, and they are now are capable to earn from this initiative as well. They can save their life and livelihoods. So with that, I would like to go to our next panelist, who is Dr. Salahuddin Ahmed. And Dr. Salahuddin Ahmed, sir, will be actually discussing about the initiative, International Rice Research Organization initiative on climate smart mapping, and how the through the mapping, how the community is involved and how the community actually owns that mapping system, how the mapping system is efficient for the community, and how they are getting the benefits. So over to you, Dr. Salahuddin Ahmed.
Thank you so much, Adiba. I represent International Rice Research Institute, Bangladesh office. I'll talk about this, as Adiba said, it's a participatory tools called Climate Smart Mapping and Adaptation Planning, which was actually started experimenting in Vietnam first in 2019. And it actually was accepted by the Vietnam government. They took up large program on how to make climate smart agriculture in their coastal areas, and they have introduced that mapping system in 600,000 hectares of the land and got very interesting results. And therefore, it was later, experimented in Cambodia and also in Bangladesh. We introduced these tools in Bangladesh in 2022 and conducted this mapping approach with the farmers and extension workers in 10 districts of Bangladesh. So I would like to show a video first that captures that how we involved all kinds of stakeholders in order to make these maps. And then maybe after the video, I can talk about that how we are going to make it more participatory and then how to extend it more widely in coastal areas of Bangladesh where climate shocks and hazards are more apparent in Bangladesh. So can you just play the video that I shared before?
Climate smart mapping and adaptation planning is an innovative tool that combines geographic information systems, climate data, and community input to create maps that highlight areas of risk due to climate change. These maps are crucial for planning and carrying out adaptive measures to safeguard our ecosystems and livelihoods.
CS map basically এটা participatory mapping approach. আমরা এই অ্যাপ্রোচটা বাংলাদেশের কোস্টালে প্রায় 10টা ডিস্ট্রিক্টে আমরা এটা ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করেছি। জেলা ভিত্তিক কৃষির সাথে যারা সংশ্লিষ্ট কর্মকর্তা আছে বা যারা স্টেক হোল্ডার আছে তাদেরকে নিয়ে একটি কর্মশালার মাধ্যমে দিয়ে আমরা ওই অঞ্চলের বা ওই ডিস্ট্রিক্টের জলবায়ুর যে কৃষিতে জলবায়ুর যে ঝুঁকিগুলো আছে সেগুলোকে আমরা আইডেন্টিফাই করেছি। আমাদের জলবায়ুর ঝুঁকিগুলা কৃষির ক্ষেত্রে কোন কোন জায়গায় হচ্ছে এবং তার মাত্রাটা কেমন সেইটা আমরা মানে ম্যাপের মাধ্যমে আমরা সেটাকে তুলে আনার চেষ্টা করেছি।
Climate change poses significant threats to our environment.
অতিরিক্ত তাপমাত্রা বাড়ার কারণে আমাদের ফসলের ক্ষতি হচ্ছে।
ঝড় বৃষ্টি যদি হয় তার ফসল ক্ষতি হইবে।
ঔষধ পানি না দিলে সার না দিলে হয় না।
যখন বৃষ্টিপাত হয় না তখন আমাদের ক্ষেতে লবণাক্ততা বেড়ে যায় আমাদের গাছ মারা যায়।
CS map helps us understand these threats in a tangible way, allowing for better planning and adaptation.
CS map অ্যাপ্রোচের এটা একটা সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ দিক যে পার্টিসিপেশনটা বা মতামতটা আসছে রুট লেভেলের স্টেক হোল্ডারদের থেকে। যারা মাঠ পর্যায়ে কাজ করে তাদের যে মাঠ পর্যায়ের অভিজ্ঞতা, তাদের যে মানে মাঠ পর্যায়ে অ্যাডাপ্টেশন নিচ্ছে যেই সব যে জিনিসগুলো যারা বা যেগুলো দরকার তারা ফিল করতেছে সেটাকেই কিন্তু তারা অ্যাডাপ্টেশনে বলছে, সেটাই তারা ঝুঁকি হিসেবে চিহ্নিত করছে। CS ম্যাপ অ্যাপ্রোচের এটা একটা সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ দিক যে পার্টিসিপেশনটা বা মতামতটা আসছে রুট লেভেলের স্টেক হোল্ডারদের থেকে।
By identifying vulnerable areas, CS map enables communities to prioritize actions and allocate resources more effectively. It's a proactive approach to climate adaptation that can save lives and livelihoods.
কোন এলাকায় কি হচ্ছে এবং কি ধরনের ঝুঁকি আছে যেটা অন্যান্য মেথডের মধ্যে হয়তোবা ওইভাবে প্রতিফলিত হয় না বা হচ্ছে না, বা যেটা এইটার একটা ভালো সাইড হচ্ছে যে আমরা আমাদের অ্যাডাপ্টেশন বলেন, আমাদের ঝুঁকি বলেন, আমাদের করণীয় বলেন, এগুলা একটা ভিজুয়ালাইজেশন হয়, একটা স্পেশাল ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন আমরা দেখতে পাই। এগ্রিকালচার এক্সটেনশন যারা কৃষির সম্প্রসারণ নিয়ে কাজ করতেছে এবং তারা যদি এই টুলটাকে ব্যবহার করে তারা তাদের যে ইউনিয়ন পর্যায়ে বা কৃষক পর্যায়ে যদি তারা জলবায়ু ঝুঁকিগুলো আইডেন্টিফাই করে এবং তার যে ব্যাপ্তি এবং তার যে ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন বা সেটা যদি তারা আইডেন্টিফাই করে তাহলে কৃষক লেভেলে তারা বলতে পারবে যে হ্যাঁ তোমার এই এলাকায় এই জায়গাটায় এই ধরনের ঝুঁকি আছে এবং এই ঝুঁকিকে মোকাবেলা করতে হলে তোমার এটা করতে হবে।
তথ্য যদি ডিএই পেয়ে যায়, CS ম্যাপের তথ্য পেয়ে গেল কোথায় কোন ঝুঁকি আছে, যদি ঝুঁকি অ্যানালাইসিস হয়, রিস্ক অ্যানালাইসিস হয় এবং রিস্কগুলো আইডেন্টিফাই করা হয় এবং টাইম টু টাইম এটাকে যদি আপডেটিং করা হয়, তা আপডেটিংয়ের সাথে ডিএই এটাকে ম্যাচিং করে অ্যাডাপ্টেশন পর্যায়ে গিয়ে ডিএই একটা ভালো ভূমিকা রাখতে পারে এবং ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন লেভেলে গিয়ে একটা ডিএই ভালো ভূমিকা রাখতে পারে, কাজ করতে পারে। এটিকে যদি আমরা কার্যকরীভাবে তৈরি করতে পারি তাহলে কিন্তু আমাদের এক্ষেত্রে আগামী দিনের ফসল উৎপাদনের পরিকল্পনায় একটা যুগান্তকারী পরিবর্তন আসতে পারে, আসা সম্ভব।
Creating CS map involved a collaborative effort from agricultural scientists, local communities and various stakeholders. Workshops were held to gather local knowledge and concerns, ensuring that the maps reflect real-world conditions and challenges.
আমরা যখন এই CS ম্যাপ করেছি আমরা কিন্তু এই যে যারা স্টেক হোল্ডার আছে যারা মাঠ পর্যায়ে কাজ করতেছে তারা কিন্তু সকলেই জেলা পর্যায়ে এসে পার্টিসিপেট করে তাদের মতামত দিয়ে কোন জায়গায় কি ধরনের সমস্যা হচ্ছে, কি ঝুঁকি আছে, কি অ্যাডাপ্টেশন নেওয়া যায় সেটা কিন্তু তারা দিচ্ছে। অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম আমরা কিন্তু আবার ওই মতামতটা নিয়ে আমরা ম্যাপ তৈরি করে সেটা কিন্তু আবার ইউনিয়ন লেভেলে এসে ওই সমস্ত মতামতের ভিত্তিতে কিন্তু আমি আবার কৃষকদের সাথে মত বিনিময় করতেছি যে হ্যাঁ যেই সব মতামতগুলো আসছিল সেগুলো কতটুকু ভ্যালিডেট। সুতরাং আমি বলবো যে এটা একটা অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ যে এখানে সব লেভেলের স্টেক হোল্ডাররা যারা কৃষির সাথে সংশ্লিষ্ট তাদের কিন্তু এখানে অংশগ্রহণ হয়েছে। একই সাথে আমরা পানি উন্নয়ন বোর্ড বা ফিশারিজ যারা কৃষিকে সাপ্লিমেন্ট করতেছে তারাও কিন্তু এখানে অংশ নিয়েছে।
For CS map to remain effective, It must be sustainable. This involves continuous community engagement, regular updates to the maps, and capacity building for local stakeholders.
এই ম্যাপটা যাতে আরো সহজভাবে কৃষককে বোঝানো যায় এটার ব্যবস্থা করা উচিত বলে আমি মনে করি এবং আমরাও এটা এই ম্যাপটা ফলো করলে আমাদের কাজ অনেক সহজ হয়ে যাবে।
এটাকে স্বল্প মেয়াদি না করে আমরা যদি মধ্যমেয়াদি করি তাহলে এটা মনে হয় বেশি কার্যকরী বা ইফেক্টিভনেসটা আমাদের বাড়বে।
সহায়তাকারী প্রতিষ্ঠান হিসেবে আমরা সিজিআইএস আছে, ইরি আছে বা অন্য আরও যারা সায়েন্টিফিক ইনস্টিটিউট আছে তারা তাদের সাথে একসাথে কাজ করতে পারে পুরো প্রসেসটাকে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করার ক্ষেত্রে। বাট সামনে থেকে যদি এটাকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যায় তাহলে এটা আমি মনে করি যে কৃষক পর্যায়ে বা মাঠ পর্যায়ে এটা সহজেই ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করা সম্ভব।
Its seasonality and its variation with the different crops. And then we get an adaptation plan for each of the risks. And then we plan the map actually captures both risk areas and the crop related to that, and also the subsequent adaptation plan. And this is done as the video said that it was done in the district, but later on it was validated with the other stakeholders and also the farmers at the union level and also at the upazila level. So by doing that, you get a visualization of risks, adaptations, and a plan that can be time to time, renewed and developed further, and then make it useful for both planning and implementation of agriculture programs, which is climate smart. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll be available for questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Salahuddin, sir. Can you just unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Salahuddin, sir, for discussing such a participatory method. Actually, in most of the cases when we work or when we review, actually, as a researcher, we see that people say about locally led adaptation, but in the reality, they do not implement the actual meaning of locally led adaptation. So through this tool, actually, there was seen more participation of people, more proactive approach. Actually, that's what we need for saving our life and livelihood from the threat of climate change actually impact. So with that, I would like to now invite Dr. Ghulam Rabbani actually to discuss about the Climate Bridge Fund, and I will give the floor to Dr. Ghulam Rabbani.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adiba. Am I audible? Wonderful. Well, I'm very honored and humbled, to be here to talk about Climate Bridge Fund, and I would at least focus on 5 major points. What are the criteria and how we select the projects, and support the vulnerability of the climate migrants and other vulnerable population. The first thing is, in terms of accessing the Climate Bridge Fund, which is an endowment fund, which means we invested the major portion of the fund, and then we are using the income of this investment to support the adaptation projects. Now the question is, how do you access this Climate Bridge Fund? There are a number of criteria, and we call them eligibility criteria. And these criteria are, are divided into, two parts. The first one is, the project-related criteria, and the second one is institutional criteria. Under the project-related criteria, the most important criteria is impact criteria, which means, how climate change adversely affect this population and how they are vulnerable. So someone who wants to, develop a project idea needs to make sure that this population are adversely affected or potential to be affected by the climate change. And the second most important criteria is the engagement of the local community, which means the whole project idea needs to be decided by the target community. They understand their needs, they understand how to prioritize the problems, and they understand how to implement it. So the IPs, meaning the potential NGO who wants to submit the project idea, needs to go to that community and discuss the problems and needs, and prioritize those problems. So these two criteria are the most important criteria. But I can tell you, there are 12 project-related criteria. But let me just talk to you, few more criteria. The third criteria is the geographic criteria. It is basically decided by the government of Germany and government of Bangladesh. So there are 5 urban locations. Shirazganj Pureshobha, Satkhira Pureshobha, Borishal City Corporation, Rajshahi City Corporation, and Khulna City Corporation. So you need to identify the low-income community slums, in the most vulnerable slums. If you bring a slum which says easily accessible and better resilient, that should not be the project location when you want to access the climate risk fund. It should be most vulnerable slum. So that's the third criteria. And there are a few more criteria. The projects needs to be aligned with the national policy instrument, or even the city corporation's policy instrument, and also need to be discussed with the local authority, local stakeholders, and the city corporation authority. So these are the major criteria how you actually make sure that the decisions and the ideas of the project should come from the local level. And regarding institutional criteria, we actually look at some of the experiences. So track record is also, but it is not, it doesn't have to be very long experience. You need to have 10, 20 years experience. No, at least 2 project experiences, need to be there to have access to this fund. And there's a budget size. If you really want to have access to this fund, you have to make sure that you have a financial capacity. So that is quite important. And then what is the capacity? The annual budget has to be at least 5 times larger than the submitted proposal. So these are the most important criteria. Regarding second question, or second point that I want to highlight is, how do we decide the area of the implementation? In fact, as I was mentioning, that the first point is it was decided by the government of Bangladesh and government of Germany on the locations, but at the same time, during the project brief, every year we announce a call, and we identify the most potential local NGOs and also INGOs. We keep it open. But I will come to the main point, how it is different, in terms of LLA. So during the project brief, before they submit the concept note, we encourage these potential partners to visit the most vulnerable slums, okay, and then talk about it, and then talk about the problems, the past problems, current problems, and what might happen in 2030, what might happen in 2025. and what are the potential problems that we see due to sea level rise, cyclone storm surge, drought, flood, salinity intrusion, and then you identify the priority needs and then develop the project idea. And then they consult with the other stakeholders, other actors, and then local authorities. So these are the, the process. That's how, they actually identify the exact project location, of this project. And let me now focus on the, community view on this initiative, how they actually see as climate risk fund. I share with you, 2-3 examples. Just immediately after the cyclone Rimal, I'm sure that most of the people here know about cyclone Rimal, which affected, central coast and southwest coast just a few months back. And I was talking to the woman, who used the, BRAC urban development program constructed, plinth-raised latrine. Only that latrine was functional in Mohammadpur slum in the Borishal City Corporation area. And I was talking to 3 women, and all of them were saying, it was very difficult to even stay in the house. But since the latrine was raised, plinth was raised, so it was not difficult to use during this, cyclonic period, at least for 5 to 7 days. So this is the example, that I see from the area. If I go another slum, which is called Bangabandhu slum in Borishal City Corporation, it was under construction, under constructed, wash block, 6-chamber wash block, and we couldn't even finish it. And what they did, during the cyclone period, they used it as a shelter. So some of the elderly people, some of the women, and their valuable assets, they put in the under construction, wash block. It was quite bigger than, it was 6-chamber toilet. So they used it as a shelter. It was very, interesting, and people are saying this was, kind of shelter to us. So this is how they see, and I can give you, few more examples, but I'm sorry, perhaps I don't have sufficient time to, talk about everything. Let me now focus on the last point, which is challenges. These are process-related challenges, technical challenges. Let me talk about the development concept and the adaptation concept. Unfortunately, we still find in most of the proposal, this comes as a development project. Whatever they want to do, they feel like this is an adaptation. But my main problem is, the climate projections, the future climate projections are not adequately integrated in the climate, in the concept and the proposal. So that is the major challenge that we see. Then how do you overcome these challenges? And Adiba requested me to say, how do you overcome these challenges, when you discuss? What we do, in the past, in the first 2 years, we tried to brief them about the, integration of climate projection. Now, when they, when we shortlist the, from the concept stage, and then we get like, 10 to 12, proponents to develop the detailed proposal. We bring them in a proposal development workshop, and we explain them. And we explain them how to link with the climate change impacts with your proposed action, so that you make sure that you are actually trying to improve an adaptation action. And the second point is, there are, NAPs, National Adaptation Plan, available in Bangladesh. There is nationally determined contribution available in Bangladesh. There is, there are a number of, climate change strategy and action plan. So why don't you refer these documents and see what are the projections of climate change in this particular area in 2030, 2040, 2050, and look at your lifespan of your proposed technology, proposed services, and implement this based on that reference. So this is one challenge that you see. Perhaps I will finish by mentioning 1 or 2 more challenges. And then, in most of the cases, if not all, I see, there is a tendency of the proponent, they want to identify the slums and low-income communities in a comfortable zone, where access, they can go and drive the car and they can immediately enter the slums, but not the most vulnerable. So this comes with our due diligence process. We visit them and then we identified them. Some of the NGOs did not really propose to work in a most vulnerable slum or low income communities. So and now we ensure that you have to do it. You have to visit at least 10 most vulnerable slums. You have to talk to the local authorities, talk to the other actors, and identify the most vulnerable. So this is the challenge that we see. And the last but not the least is the political pressure in selection of beneficiary. This is absolute pressure in everywhere. It is very difficult, and that's why how do you welcome? We encourage NGOs to talk with the CBOs. There are numbers of CBOs in every low-income communities. So CBOs are the voters of these people. So sometimes CBOs are more powerful than this, these community leaders. So when the CBOs go to the local authority and discuss with these political leaders, they are a bit softer than what they do with the NGOs, our implementing partners. So I'm so sorry for taking long time, Adiba. If you have any more questions, perhaps I will respond.
No, yes, thank you, Dr. Ghulam Rabbani, actually to cover such a good points. Like while managing the grants, these are the requirements or the procedures that we often face, and we actually do not know how to overcome. We actually and on ad hoc basis we try to come up with solutions. But it's really good to hear, because mostly in case of grants, in case of adaptation, the three major challenges that we actually come through is, first is finance, that what the Green Climate Bridge Fund supports. Then information and knowledge gap is one thing, that how you actually try to give capacity building, like you mentioned about arranging a workshop before writing the proposal for the grant. And lastly, collaboration. Often seen there is insufficient or no collaboration between CSOs, NGOs, government organizations. So collaboration is something actually that actually completes this program as a whole of adaptation program, that what we want to know. So now I will go to Afsara Binte Mirza from ICAT. So Afsara Binte Mirza actually will discuss about how ICAT as a research organization, think tank organization from Bangladesh, working globally, and how we are implementing locally led adaptation initiatives from our organization. Afsara, over to you.
Thank you so much, Adibapu, and hello everyone to all the panelists. And I think I come last, so I have a lot of pressure to actually make it a good one, because I had really a lot of esteemed panelists before me. But thank you so much, Adibapu, for the opportunity. And yeah, so ICAT is actually doing a lot of interesting work. And first, to begin with, is that we act as a knowledge broker for locally led adaptation in the global South. Where we try to unfold locally led adaptation and what it means in different South Asian countries. But currently, we are mainly focusing on Bangladesh, where we have launched four to five divisional platforms. And what I mean by them is that these platforms are spaces where we invite stakeholders from the local level. So we have 8 divisions in Bangladesh, and we plan to actually have 8 divisional platforms by end of this year. And so far we have launched 5 platforms. The main goal of these platforms are to really synergize the local actors. And what I mean by local actors is like INGOs, NGOs, like CBOs, grassroots organizations, academicians, universities, schools, any local actors who play a major role in terms of tackling any crisis during disasters. We try to identify them, and we hold a meeting where we just introduce them with the concept of locally led adaptation, and we kind of make it a very open discussion where we want to hear from them, like what are the local challenges that they're also facing. And one of the beneficial thing that this dialogue or these platforms really helps us to do is that it helps us to shed light on the local contextual challenges from each divisions of Bangladesh, and at the same time it also helps us to, tailor adaptation interventions or gather more evidence on adaptation interventions which are more relevant to those divisions. And as we're approaching to like COP29, and one of the key things that ICAD is doing also is working on the accountability front of locally led adaptation. So with International Institute for Environment and Development, IID, they're also a research organization and a think tank based in UK. And we have been working with them and co-developing some scorecards for locally led adaptation. And the process that we follow, in developing those is mainly a set of indicators which aligns with the 8 principles of locally led adaptation. And it's a great tool to really assess of how well communities are being involved in decision making when it comes to adaptation planning or interventions at the local level. And this scorecard can be used and tailored or contextualized to your own country's context, like political dynamic, like taking into account social dynamic, cultural dynamic. And I think, the beauty of this tool is that you can tailor it, but at the same time, donors, intermediaries, and recipients can also use it. So we are doing a pilot phase of it where we are assessing 2 locally led adaptation projects that are currently happening in Bangladesh by 2 INGOs, and we probably will have a report ready by COP29. Other than that, one of the things that ICAD is doing is also doing some capacity building. So recently we also held our short course, and that was held just like last week, where we did like a 4-day long short course on locally led adaptation and its nexus with local loss and damage, to really see how the synergy between loss and damage and locally led adaptation, and how in order to adapt better we have to really see the climate change crisis in a way that really takes into account the local values of the local people. So that short course really enables us to connect with the resource persons or the practitioners who are working in the adaptation arena, but also makes sure that we co-develop with the participants of what does LLA mean for them. And this time we did it nationally. Last year it was an international cohort where we had almost 20 participants from 7 different countries, but this time we had almost 29 participants nationally from Bangladesh. Other than that, ICAD has been very actively also working on developing some indicators on global goal on adaptation. And as we know that, this COP will be very important for climate finance, and mainly the new collective qualitative goal, which really, stresses the need to set some sub goals for adaptation. Because, the last goal which was set, where we said that by 2025, we're gonna invest like 100 billion annually, that goal we couldn't meet, and that shows how how behind we are in terms of accountability and transparency of funding to the local level and to the communities who are at the front lines of the climate crisis. So one of the things that ICAD wants is also advocating is to have some indicators in the global goal on adaptation, which really encapsulates the 8 principles of locally led adaptation. And it has been a very interesting journey to work on this, on this global goal on adaptation framework. And I hope, it gives us opportunity to bridge the gaps of adaptation and really take it into consideration when the global stock take happens next time. Going forward, ICAD really plans to do a lot with the national stakeholders when it comes to locally led adaptation. So generating more evidence, like Rabbani sir shared about the Climate Bridge Fund, and these are good examples which nationally we should promote. And also one thing that ICAD wants to do is definitely lead knowledge generation when it comes to shedding light on the local adaptation interventions, which encapsulates the 8 principles. But one thing that we also want to do is also co-develop and co-generate knowledge products, initiate dialogues where we can learn from each other, where we can learn about the failures, but also the successes. Because I feel like sometimes, we have been focusing more on the successes, but less on the failures. But maybe going forward, this is something we want to do, that we plan to have next year, which is adaptation exhibition, where we want to have all the national stakeholders who are working on climate change adaptation in a broader angle, and then have, some sessions on like locally led adaptation and climate change in general. That's all from me, Adibapu, and thank you so much for having me at the panel.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing such innovative initiatives that ICAD is going to do, or ICAD is planning to do, actually. So with that, I will now hand over to our to the mic to Saqib Haq, who will be closing the session. Saqib Haq, over to you.
Thank you, Adiba. Thank you to all our speakers. My name is Saqib Haq. I'm the Managing Director for International Center for Climate Change and Development. And I'm very, very grateful for, firstly, to all our panelists and our partners that have been working with us for the virtual summit and the sessions beforehand, but also to our audience. So for those of you that might not know, this is being broadcast live, streamed online. So there are a number of audience members and participants that have been following quite a lot of the discussions that you've been having. And one of the elements that we've been engaged with within this virtual summit with the Resilience Hub is to use this as a way of networking, to understand what different types of work that everybody's engaged in, because there's quite a lot of activities that everybody's doing at the national and the local levels. But oftentimes this isn't something that really leaves that sphere. It just stays within our networks, it stays within our connections that are in country, in those districts, in the locality, but it doesn't allow other people to really understand how the topic is being addressed, what are different challenges or similar challenges and solutions other people are working on. And so this virtual summit for us has been one of the really engaging areas for us to be able to let people know that within this region from South Asia, there are a number of different initiatives that are being worked upon. There are a number of very experienced partners that are working on these issues. And how do we, not only talk about the projects that we're doing in sort of getting to enhance our organizations and our projects, but for other people to learn. So that one of the elements of this virtual summit is that you as organizations and panelists, your names, your organization emails, your project details and documents are also something that is shared so that people can learn from that. And I hope that they're able to reach out to you if they have questions on how may they be able to have similar impacts on their projects, on their design, or even for researchers like myself, just to be able to get more idea and information about some of the work that you're doing so that we can all work collaboratively and make more of an impact to the communities that we live to serve. So with that, I know we're running short on time, but I've been asked to sort of have a quick round between the last bit of the panelists. So I'll give a 1 minute, quick one or two bullet answer question from each of the panelists, if you don't mind. So I'll start with Rabbani bhai, jehetu financing issues on locally led issues have always been something that has been marginalized. So finance has always been a very critical topic, but locally led financing has been something that has always been marginalized from the global streams. How much funding actually gets down to the communities and where we're actually able to make that kind of impact. So Rabbani bhai, thank you. You gave a very descriptive answer into the ways that your fund is managing and looking into how you can be addressing the locally led adaptation principles in your working and how that works both streams. It's not only looking downstream at the organizations, but also upstream at the development partners and the funders that you're working with. What are the different commitments that they've agreed with? So in that sense, one sort of bullet question that I would ask you is, do you see that there are a number of different donors that have really taken on board the LLA principles and are looking to fund in that way? Or is that still something that you're fighting with each funder every time you're looking for the new grant funding phase that you're getting into? Are there more and more open donors that are really looking at how they can cut these middle streams and really get funding at the national and local levels? Or are they still working in the same old channels as before? Rabbani bhai, you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you so much for this, very pertinent question. I mean, I was talking to a number of donors, and it looks like, the development partners are pretty interested. If we consider, AFD, I was talking to them, and they are focusing. In fact, they are the first development partner who actually, took this decision to promote LLA. and secondly, I was also talking to the multilateral agencies, for example, Asian Development Bank. They are also looking at it. They want to make sure that even the government actually, integrate this LLA and, make sure that, this locally led adaptation actions are implemented on the ground under different government institutions. So at least two examples that I can refer to you at this point.
Thank you, Rabbani Bhai. Again, I would request anybody that's interested in these issues, please do feel free to reach out. Again, if you would like, you can reach out to us as the organizers or directly to the panelists and the speakers in getting a little bit more of an idea. So I think Rabbani Bhai has given us a very good list of the criteria that the Climate Bridge Fund have been looking at, how they've been trying getting the funding down to the local levels. And again, there are obviously pitfalls and channels that we should be looking into how we can improve. So if there are any additional areas that we might be able to work on and be able to improve or so, I'm sure Rabbani Bhai and particularly ourselves at ICAD would be very happy to learn what are the different ways that we might be able to streamline this. And again, what development partners might be on board to do so. So happy to bring that on board. So I'll move on to our next set of panelists, Dr. Rajvi and Dr. Salahuddin. Because both of you have given a very good sort of description about the community-led design of the projects and how you're mobilizing the communities to really take the initiatives and design them, I'll give you both a two-pointer question. Firstly, thank you so much for giving us the overview of your initiatives. I think those are very, very promising areas of work, and you're already getting quite a lot of impact and results from that. So one of the learnings that we would like for other persons that are following this summit with us, when we're designing our projects, when we're sort of working at the proposal stage, when we're looking at our stakeholders and the community levels, what are some of the elements that somebody at the design phase, at the proposal call stage, should be looking at to really make sure that the proposal and the project that we pitch for has that community-led, community-driven initiatives from the very beginning and not something that comes in at the later stage. So again, I'll give you a little bit of time to think on that, but I'll back out with a little bit of a metaphor and an analogy from our side is oftentimes when we come up with a proposal, when we're asked to join for a bid or look for a call for funding, the deadlines are very, very tight. So it's very, very difficult for us at that time to mobilize the community to go and talk to all the relevant stakeholders, whether they're subnational entities, whether they're associations or networks, or even community NGOs. And so what we try and do, as Afsara mentioned from some of our work, is to be able to do a lot of that sort of needs assessment, relationship building, partnership talks with a number of different partners through these platforms that we establish, through these divisional platforms on LLA, through these workshops and short courses, and being able to sort of get into conversations with people so that when we have a very short deadline and we're working with a very tight sort of development partner that needs documentation and support very, very quickly so that they're able to process the funding call immediately, we already have a number of our partners that we've sort of worked with, and it's a matter of just being able to refine things particular to the call that we're looking at. And that's one of the initiatives that we've taken. But just from your side, what would be some of the ways that other organizations that are working on LLA principles or CBA initiatives, what should they be doing to really make sure that their projects are taking that community drive and that local leadership as part of their design from the very beginning? And then what should we be doing throughout the project to make sure that more of these initiatives are successful? If I can start with you, Dr. Rajvi, please.
To ensure that most of the initiatives are community-led, it's just a one-line answer, have a bottoms-up approach. Whenever we are drafting a proposal, would be great to have the end beneficiaries on table with us to know what their exact needs are and how they can be addressed from localized purview. That is the one major thing we can do.
Thank you, Dr. Rajvi. Dr. Salahuddin?
I don't know whether you will be disturbed because there is a, mosquito gun going on behind my building. So
I think we're good for now, sir.
Our advantage was that this component was part of the other programs because, as you know, that International Rice Research Institute, together with other international institutes like World Fish and Potato Center and Maize and Wheat Center, we worked together and we were having a program side by side with this, the subcomponent of the project that where we are developing this CS map. So we were already engaged with the communities. So we actually had experience of several years of working with the communities, developing technologies with them. So for us, this was not an issue. But as you know, that government has always some priorities. So if we can work with the relevant organizations, especially in the field of agriculture, we already have partners like Agriculture Extension Department. If you have that established relationship, they will have priorities already known, and they can collaborate with you in that. So the communities for agricultural actors is an advantage that you cannot do without the community. So
absolutely,
that already developed relationship in order in the field. But there's some problems with sometimes with the partners, because a development project, you cannot just suddenly approach the government agencies to partner with you if you are not writing the project or developing the project with them, and it is part of their planning and development programs. So there you have some problems. So you need to take some of the local NGOs, and you feel like the local NGOs do not have adequate capacity to perhaps work with in the field of agriculture, because they are mostly engaged with some other microcredits and other kind of programs. So there is always a compatibility question and problem that arises. But if you are keen, so you can work with, as Dr. Rabbani was saying, that there are always, like in the coastal area, there are polders. In the polders, there are always some water management committees, some organizations that are may not be very active in all the time, but you can always bring in those dead organizations into life,
revive them somehow,
to work with them. So this is possible. If you are keen in doing something, you will find the ways to do it.
Absolutely, sir. I think those are some very good messages. I believe we're running short on time at the moment, so I unfortunately have to not rely on Apsara's remarks, but I hope that you've been able to get a little bit of a sense of some of the different initiatives that not just us at ACAD, but also at our partners. What are some of the different ways that we're trying to really take this LLA approach collaboratively? What are the different ways that it's manifesting themselves in different areas and on the ground? But then there are similarities, and hopefully that's the areas that we might be able to collaborate on. And as our partners mentioned, please do stay in touch with the communities. The more that you're able to really engage with them, get their needs, get their voices to be put into your discussions, put into your projects, that's where the effectivity of the initiatives really come through. And that's where we'll really be able to focus on the second L on LLA, on the leadership of local community. So with that being said, I'd like to hand over to our panelists. It's a round of applause to our panelists.